Hey again, everyone. Fall in for another episode of Tactical Plastic Report, where I talk about Army Men, a game of tactical plastic. This week, I'm going to hit up on the last stop of our general tour of the setting for folks who have been interested, and we're talking about Plastos Federation, which is not technically a country, but is rather a political organization that is, in many ways, the heart of both the setting and the lore of this game. And I mentioned it previously when we were talking about the Acetyl Alliance, but I will recover it for folks who did not go back and rewatch that episode before coming to join us this week. In short, roughly 50 years ago, in game setting, the world was at war. Two of the major countries were at each other's throats, and they were being egged on and supplied by all of their allies across the board. And in the midst of this conflict, which had been dragging on for nearly a decade, a new player entered the fray. And this is where the vespoids, the giant insectoid creatures, showed up and started wreaking havoc indiscriminately. They did not appear to have a side they were taking. No one was entirely sure where they'd come from or what their purpose was, but everyone recognized, even in the midst of war, this was a threat that, well, threatened all of them. And thus, an armistice was declared, at least temporarily, while everyone figured out what to do about this new mutual threat. The ongoing conflict that had been happening was negotiated very quickly, came to an end, and all persons who were part of the existing nations came together to fight this new threat with a unified front. And to really handle and negotiate this whole setup, a organization was formed to ensure that there were bylaws, that there were rules, that there were laws that all members were expected to follow, and benefits that all members would expect to get from their fellows. And thus was born the Plastos Federation, which is in a lot of ways similar to United Nations in that all member states contribute what they can, and all member states can accept a certain type of benefit and a certain amount of help from all of their fellows. That doesn't mean all of them are best friends and bosom buddies. It does not mean that all of them are on the same page about everything, but it does mean they are allies in this particular fight. For folks who are fans of the grimdark future of Warhammer 40k, they function similar to the Death Watch as far as game masters and players are concerned, in that they operate as an organization that it allows you to take troopers from any nation and bring them together in a single squad so that they can face threats without you having to explain why so many military units are suddenly smashed together in a way that might not make organizational sense otherwise. Because that is, mechanically, the purpose of the Plastos Federation. In addition to giving you a unified front for all the different nations to come together to explain why the various resinous peoples are not at each other's throats while there are also threats going on, it allows you to give yourself and your players more freedom. For example, if one of your players really likes the Steric Republic, they think that some of their more elite units are really keen and they just want to play with them, whereas another player just really loves the Acetyl Alliance. They love that history, they love that conflict. This allows you to have both of those players in the same squad without forcing them to change any of their history. They are simply assigned to a Federation unit. They are asked to do a tour of duty with the Federation, so they're sent from their various nations and their various militaries, and now they're paired up with people they might not normally work with. They might even have rather distinct opinions of that might make working together in the field a little difficult. And again, to continue the comparison to the grimdark future, this can be a lot of fun if it's the kind of conflict that players enjoy and that they feel will build story of. If you have two troopers who are from formerly combative nations or who were raised with very particular opinions about other countries, suddenly they have to work with those countries. They have to go out there and test their opinions, test their stereotypes, and they have to depend on each other. So, to use another comparison, you might end up with a Legolas and Gimli situation of two people who started off as rather combative end up becoming extraordinarily close thanks to the threats that they faced in the field. But, as with many other parts of the setting, the Plastos Federation exists as kind of an umbrella, and you can use it if you desire, but you are under no obligation to put it in your game. You are not forced to use it if you don't want to. For example, it can just be there. If you have all of your players decide they want to be from one particular nation, or you as a game master decide, like, I don't want to involve the entire setting with the nonsense that I am doing. I want to keep things simple. Maybe I'm just starting off. Maybe I'm getting a feel for the setting. Maybe I just don't want to overcomplicate things. In that case, the Federation could exist as a background faction. They could exist as a place that NPCs might come from, or they might exist as just something that helps facilitate you if you need ammunition drops in the field, if you need to call in assistance, whether it's for an airstrike, whether it's to get NPC troopers to come and assist with a major threat that was uncovered by your players and their squad. They can fill a lot of roles, and particularly because they themselves are not a country, you can do a lot with them that might be restrained if you were using an actual nation. And that is something that I think makes them very useful, makes them very flexible as a part of the world and part of the setting. And they are, in a lot of ways, the face of things. They are the major faction that it's expected, even if you are not an official member of it as an individual. Maybe you as a trooper are still boots on the ground infantry for one of the specific nations. You still at least acknowledge that you're all part of this organization, that you are all technically allies on paper and in action, though there may still be all sorts of other things going on behind the scenes, what with espionage and spycraft, if that's the kind of game you want to run. But even in those circumstances, all the member nations acknowledge those things need to be done behind the scenes. They need to be done secretly. This is not the kind of thing you can do openly, and it is not the kind of thing you can get caught doing. Sabotaging fellow members of the Federation, even if it is for the good of your particular nation, is a very large no-no. And that is the kind of thing that can end careers, and that can, if you are captured, end with very serious consequences to stop you from ever mentioning to anyone that your actions were in fact sanctioned by those above you. But that is our last stop on the tour of the setting, and it's our last major thing that I feel needs to be covered in order for people to understand what's going on in Army Men and what are the major nations, what are the major, power players on the stage. So let me ask you, as my audience, lots of you wanted this little tour, and I gave you as much as I could get without getting too in-depth. Where would you like me to go next? Do you want me to cover more lore? Do you want me to cover more of the story of the setting? Or would you like me to get into some of the mechanical design? Would you like me to talk about some of what makes Army Men different from standard Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, which is what was used for its basic mechanical setup? I am open to whatever it is you all want to know. I am here to provide you the information you want, especially if you're still not sure if this is a game you want to get into yet. What can I say to sell you? So leave your comments down below, and until next time, this has been Tactical Plastic Report. Fall out. Have a good day gaming.